7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year!
Another year gone, another year-end ranking season upon us. Since the beginning of mankind, once the calendar folds over, man has been ordering his favorite media from worst to best. At this point, I'm not sure how else I'd know when New Year's is. Screw Ryan Seacrest dropping his big shiny ball. It's not officially January till Todd in the Shadows puts out his best songs list. 2024 was a lot, to say the least. The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it felt important. Except for one thing.
Ha! Huzzah! How'd you do that?
Let's just say I can't cough or I'll give away the hiding place.
Yeah, TV got undercut this year. Maybe it was just because I didn't get a chance to watch as much due to my hectic work schedule, or I was knee-deep, and still am, in my music year-end rankings, but it felt like television got put on the back burner. There were lots of shows that felt like they just came and went, a lot of returns that felt flat, a lot of average content that was just kind of there. Blame it on the strikes last year and their lingering effects on the business, or all the huge events that took up more broadcast time, but in any case, TV got the short end of the stick. You know something's up when, as a TV YouTuber, my algorithm is promoting movie and video game year-end lists from tiny channels over TV-related content. There was simply no one talking about it. And given this was the year where Shogun broke all sorts of records at the Emmys and Squid Game finally came back for an even bigger season 2, that's very telling. There wasn't even a show bad enough to get the Madam Web treatment. Most of the shows on this list, as you'll see, were fine. Decent 7 out of 10 inoffensive TV that, while not bad, weren't moving the needle like years past. And even on the higher end, this was the first year since I've been doing these recaps where I did not have a 10 out of 10 show. The theme of the year was disappointing. Even podcasts and web shows, which I do include on my list, felt like they played it safe. Couple that with prices on the rise and platforms continuing to make harebrained decisions about their content offerings, and it seemed like most people just lost interest in discussing TV. My good friend Mike here on YouTube just stopped uploading videos altogether, as TV was not doing anything to pull him back into the community. Instead, he got way more into focusing on himself, working hard on his fitness goals, and quit wasting his time with average run-of-the-mill entertainment. Oh, what's this? Another Dexter spinoff? Can't wait for them to pull off whatever the opposite of a hat trick is. Oh, Travis Kelce is popular? Guess we'll throw him into everything, have him host everything, put him in every commercial, make him and Taylor the top story on every tabloid show. Oh, and I guess they figured a great way to distract us from this fucking mess was to give every D-lister a Christmas special. Like, what the fuck was going on with Christmas specials this year? Seriously. For the love of Christ, it's his birthday. I know the last fucking person I'd want at my birthday is Josh fucking Groban. And don't even get me started on the AI debate. Good fucking God. It was just a lot, to say the least. And sure, reboots and Travis Kelce, they're not inherently bad things, but on the whole, TV felt like it was stuck in first gear. Like it was trying to get ahead, but was being pushed back by things around it taking first priority. I would personally call it the weakest of the 3 years I've recapped in these annual videos so far. Not that there weren't good shows, there's always some good shows, but you wouldn't be faulted for forgetting most of what dropped, at least in comparison to the worlds of music and movies. So forgive me if this ranking feels somewhat surface level and bite-sized compared to my other yearly rankings, as I just don't have much to say on most of these entries. I promise I'll make up for it when I talk about the music of 2024. Way more impact on that front, in my opinion. But as much as it'd be easy to focus on exclusively the big stories, good or bad, the average is important as well. After all, how can you properly appreciate the truly great or bad stories without the average ones giving some context? 2024 in a lot of ways was a reset year, and for the TV worlds, it felt like a long pause as they reassess how we got to this point, the point where we handed over Sesame Street to a for-profit brand and they canned it. Tell me, David, how do you want to be cooked? Stewed, fried, roasted? However you choose, taking your worthless pea-sized brain and office spacing the fuck out of it while using the rest of your body to create an awesome meal for the homeless will be my proudest moment on this fucked up planet. TV in 2024, ladies and gentlemen. As a reminder, this list is just of the new debuts, shows that came out between January 1st and December 31st. So no new seasons of existing shows, no older shows that I saw for the first time, and no reboots that are extensions of the original. That said, I have 31 shows to cover here, so let's kick it off with the worst of them all. Number 31, the Talk to a Podcast. I look like this. I shouldn't know what a shatussy is. I now know what a shatussy is. I don't need to know that information. I also don't want to ever hear those fucking words ever again. It wasn't funny the first time, it won't be funny the millionth time, and now there's an entire podcast with multiple hour-long episodes? The internet, man. Who could be responsible for such a stupid fucking okay. Yeah, honestly, the one thing I will say about this whole situation is I do get Haley's mindset. I mean, if Jake Paul offered me a bunch of money to interview celebrities instead of being a kindergarten teacher in Tennessee, the ink would be on that contract before you can say, you know what, hanging out with Whitney Cummings as opposed to being accused from some single-digit IQ red state conservative believing my coworkers and I are cutting off the dicks of their kids or whatever nonsense they've drafted up this week. Yeah, I'll take that. It's too bad it happened to a blonde with no interview skills, no sense of humor, and no personality who isn't even that hot. Only thing left to do is to hawk Jake and Haley into the trash. Oh, damn it. Number 30, Beast Games. I've never liked the term NPC content. I find it pretty lazy, both as an insult and as a way to describe arts, mostly because I think there is a time and a place for nearly every type of entertainment. So what if someone likes Imagine Dragons, you know? But this is maybe the best argument for its use case. You cannot tell me that many people saw Squid Game and took away the idea that it would make a great game show. Not once, but twice now. Like, I'm sure you can tell by this point in the video I do not think highly of the American people, but God, it is fucking depressing that we put this much emphasis on money in this world. Even the log line for this show is solely focused on the cash. 5 million reasons to play. People, have some fucking respect for yourself. You are worth more than that. It's not that fucking serious. You do not need to eat cold oatmeal or be forced to not shower for days on end or, you know, sustain life-threatening injuries for our entertainment. It's fucking gross. The only positive here is that Jimmy would never actually kill anyone like shown on Squid Game. He couldn't risk that many people not being there for his next upload, because God forbid it's 10 of 10 and only gets 99 million views. Oh, the horror. Thinking about it just makes my skin crawl. Now, Jim, if you're watching this, that was a joke. I know you're fucking awful at media literacy, but I don't actually lose sleep over my or your or anyone else's analytics. Just try to not be so number crazy next time, or at least heat up the fucking Quaker. Seriously, that may be the grossest part about this whole thing. That will make me lose sleep. Number 29, The Quiz with Balls. Say what you will about this show, at least it understands that game shows should not be a cakewalk and actually contains pretty challenging questions. And literally everything else about this show is totally unwatchable. The contestants are annoying, the gimmick is lame, the ball jokes get Jimmy Carter levels of old really fast, and Jay Pharoah, man, that Pete Davidson interview where he talked about the rate of pay SNL cast members get is really starting to shine a light on things. Number 28, Lucky 13. Man, is there anything Shaq will say no to? And what the hell happened to Gina Rodriguez? Was there a curse put on the cast of Jane the Virgin recently I'm unaware of? Am I going to read a headline that Brett Dier is getting canceled for rug pulling his own cryptocurrency? What the fuck is going on? But yeah, Lucky 13 has 2 hosts. Have you ever seen that before? A game show with 2 hosts? It's unnecessary, as the show itself has a fairly simple trivia concept, although is admittedly presented in kind of an interesting way. The gimmick revolves around the contestant being asked 13 trivia questions and then being asked to pick a range of how many questions they think they got correct. So if they were unsure on, say, 3 out of the 13, they can say they got between 10 and 12 correct, and get a smaller prize if they fall in that range. Now my question is, what is it with these shows enforcing this conservative style of play as opposed to being aggressive? It makes the whole thing pretty dull. There's also a Mr. Beast style bribe aspect that's as lame as it is in his videos, and everyone's favorite part of game shows, product placement. Coke using AI in their ads, or Pepsi funding mediocre network game shows. Pick your poison. Number 27, Universal Basic Guys. It's a step up from the new additions to the Sunday lineup Fox had last year, but it still feels pretty been there, done that. I feel bad for all the cartoon TV YouTubers that have to watch all these types of shows every year. Like, how do you remember what lines come from which shows? They all kind of blend together after a while, especially in the writing. It's like they all have some in-joke with each other on who can name drop the most forgotten 90s action movie that has a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes at some point. If animation is a medium and not just a genre, it needs to find a way to deliver jokes that aren't just bred from niche pop culture references, nonsensical shock value, and story beats that fit the mold of modern Disney sitcoms. And also, is the concept of universal basic income even relevant anymore? That seems like a pre-pandemic talking point. The guy who brought it to the mainstream has lost the bid for president, lost the bid for mayor of New York to Eric fucking Adams of all people, and now does dumb giveaways on X, or excrement as I'm trademarking, as a means to stay relevant. Great point of reference, fellas. Number 26, Grimsburg. Pretty much the exact same thing here, except for the addition of Jon Hamm, which objectively gives it a leg up. Number 25, Interior Chinatown. Watch the pilot to this show, and watch the pilot to The Boys, and tell me you don't see it. Number 24, The Floor. I already have an entire video on this one because this was easily the most frustrating show of the year, so if you want my full opinion, the link will be in the description. But the condensed version is that while this show has a lot of solid ideas deep inside it, it's fundamentally ruined by how easy it is to coast through without doing any work, rendering it useless as a competition. Also, since that video, I've seen exactly 10 minutes of Season 2, and in the very first round, one of the players says the quiet part out loud.
My game plan was to lay low. That obviously didn't work. I need to show these people that they need to leave me alone.
Beautiful. Fucking beautiful. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. The fact that this is the best game show of the year should be all you need to know. Number 23, Thank You Goodnight, The Bon Jovi Story. As most of you probably know, music is the main subject I talk about on this channel, and naturally music-themed TV documentaries are always something I'll gravitate towards. And while this one isn't horrible, it is significantly bogged down by Jon Bon Jovi's ego and a bunch of filler focused on the recovery of his voice instead of the history of the band, which is what most people will watch for. The more cynical could view it as a big commercial for their latest album, but honestly, I heard more about the show than the record. Hey, it's not my fault they chose to drop it the same day as Brat. Maybe if there were some Sambora solos, it could have been a Forever Summer instead. Just saying. Number 22, The Franchise. This is the lowest ranked comedy, at least live action comedy, on this list. And it's only there because despite TV's low-key year, comedies were on fire. I was trying to figure out why it didn't quite click for me despite not having any obvious faults, and then it hit me. It doesn't have any obvious faults. Remember that video from the Nostalgia Critic where he explores the concept of movies being so good they're bad? Well, this show is the closest I've ever seen to being an example of that. It's taking pieces of all these masterful, prestigious, award-worthy series, it's made by HBO after all, and utilizing them to make exactly what it should. A quippy, cynical satire about the state of movie making and Hollywood, but it feels empty. There's no ebb and flow. It feels distilled to almost a scientific degree on how to combine all these elements from Abbott Elementary and The Boys and Curb Your Enthusiasm, but it does so in a way that makes it feel artificial. Those shows aren't perfect by any means, but they feel a lot more natural in their presentation. The franchise feels a bit too little too late in this genre of satire, pointing out the flaws of a system that's already been made fun of a billion times, and playing it safe as to not cross the line and poking fun in the industry they work in. It's definitely watchable and is objectively capable of what it sets out to do, not to mention Aya Cash is always a joy to watch on anything, but this overly meta, fast-paced comedy style has been pretty oversaturated as of late, and this show feels like it lacks any real identity at helping it stand out amongst the sea of content like this already available. Number 21, Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage. As a non-Young Sheldon fan, this was a nice surprise. It's still not as good as The Big Bang Theory, I don't think anyone would argue that, but I think it taps into what Chuck Lorre and company are best at. The multicam setup, it plays into their strengths better than the character-driven humor of Young Sheldon. Now, I'm probably not going to change your mind, given how big the fandom of this franchise is and the immediate discourse that this show would be made using a laugh track. You've probably already made up your mind in watching it or not. But if it's worth anything to you, the first episode is free to watch on YouTube. As much as the industry has been penny pinching over the last few years, the trend of dropping pilots for both new and old shows online for free has been a really good development. Number 20, High Hopes. Have you ever wanted to know what working in a pot shop is like? Well, Hulu's got you covered because this reality show's premise of following the employees and managers of a LA marijuana dispensary isn't something I've ever seen before. The workers, as you can imagine, are pretty colorful as they pass and stack the green stuff, and you do get a sense that they do care about each other, which is refreshing to see in a workplace, especially compared to real life. What I like about this show the most is that it doesn't fall into dumb stereotypes about stoners. So much weed-centric media is really stupid. Movies, music, TV, it makes the culture seem very one-dimensional. This show gives a nice range of personalities and characters to follow, some goofier than others, but none that ever fall into the cartoon picture of Wiz Khalifa levels of parody. Even if it is reality TV at the end of the day, scripted reality TV produced by Jimmy Kimmel no less, it is refreshing, and deserves a few more eyes on it. I mean, look at its Wikipedia page, they didn't even try with this, like, come on, it's better than that. Number 19, The Pretty and Punk Podcast. By far the smallest show on this list, this is a new podcast all about punk and pop punk hosted by a young lady named Fiona, sharing her thoughts on records both old and new and adding a girl's touch to the scene. I've said many times before that punk is maybe my favorite genre of music, and Green Day, one of the most important pop punk bands of all time, is my favorite group in music. As a fan of podcasts as well, this fell right into my lap, and naturally, I was intrigued by the title alone. I make a lot of dumb puns on this channel, but Pretty and Punk is genuinely clever. So going into this, I was excited to see what she had to bring to the table. And I do for the most part enjoy Fiona's commentary on the various albums and bands from the punk world. It's very simple, and that's part of the appeal, tapping into the spirit of old YouTube. No crazy editing, no annoying brand deal reads, no 12-hour retrospectives on a 2-season Teletoon show no one remembers, no AI bullshit. Just someone with a mic talking about things they find cool. A nice little getaway from the hellhole modern YouTube has become. That said, I do wish that some of the topics were a bit more obscure. The fact that Fiona has also mentioned Green Day as her favorite band means that she tends to tread waters I already know quite well, and generally I try to avoid falling into feedback loops. As someone who's also made plenty of videos on Green Day, I don't really need another person to explain to me why American Idiot is their best album, just like I wouldn't need any more explanation of why Breaking Bad is the best TV show, or why The Godfather is the best movie. There's so much to explore out there. I mean, this is a list of TV shows from 2024, and spoiler, Shogun isn't on here because I didn't watch it. I wanted to check out the humble little punk pod with less than 200 followers because that's not going to get anywhere near the same level of attention. And you know what? I like it. I like it a lot more than plenty of these other shows made by way bigger brands that should definitely know better. So personally, I'd prefer to see a review of Dee Dee Ramone's infamous rap record after breaking away from the Ramones, or a discussion of Jared Reddick's and Kelly Ogden's super duo. over an episode of why 1994 was such an important year for punk music, because again, that's been done plenty of times already. None of this is a critique of Fiona, but it's more so a side effect of this oversaturation of stuff to make sure that we as a human species are not bored for even a second. Someone talking about popular bands to gain traction as a startup, that's just part of the game. And I do think there is a lot of potential here. Seeing that she's not even 20 episodes in yet, there's a ton of room to grow. I just like the fact that even in 2024, there are still people who aren't overwhelmed by how the YouTube metagame has changed. People who can simply turn on a camera and talk about whatever they want. I miss those days. Number 18, bandwidth. So in comparison to Pretty and Punk, this is the total opposite side of the music-themed commentary show. In this case, we have Mark Grondin of the popular review channel Spectrum Pulse live streaming weekly, reacting to underground and niche artists on Bandcamp while giving his immediate thoughts on the pieces he showcases. Mark is a music YouTube veteran. His first upload dates all the way back to July 2013. And next to Fantano, is considered by many in the community to have one of the best pens in the game. So for someone of his caliber to do a reactionary-based livestream show, uncut and unscripted, that was an interesting move. Mark's biggest asset has always been his ability to dissect music with sharp criticism, which has earned him the label of a stereotypical, snooty, angry critic over the years. But this show shines a totally different light on his general persona. The music he showcases here are from much smaller, sometimes even unheard of artists that Mark wants to give exposure to. But he's also not playing into the oversaturated genre pools either, with much of the time dedicated to jazz, ambient, electronic, or other instrumental passages. Pretty unique considering what many of his contemporaries tend to react to during their live streams. And that sharp contrast compared to his general reviews where he writes really descriptive analysis, or his sister channel Billboard Breakdown where he discusses the most popular songs on the charts, allows Mark to take the mask off, free to just vibe and joke around with the chat. It's a fun, playful side to his character that most don't know about, and can be quite engrossing, especially when the music has the energy to match it. That said, I personally like the more snobbery, pretentious brand of critic when it comes to music YouTube. I'm also a big Fantano fan, and in general, live streaming has never really been my bag. Twitch is the only main social/video sharing platform that I don't use. So while I really respect this show and have enjoyed what I've seen, it's not something I need to come back to week after week, unlike Billboard Breakdown, which I watch religiously. Oh, and also in one of the episodes, he had Fex's Subways of Your Mind queued up, which, if you know, you know, and he just passed right over it. So yeah, I had to pull it down from the top 15. Sorry, bud. Number 17, Catching Up. And speaking of YouTube vets making crazy moves this year, LS Mark launched his own fully fleshed out animated series called Catching Up, and it's pretty good. There's always so much pressure put on YouTubers when they do these sorts of projects. The type that requires a large team, is outside of their usual content style, maybe in some cases requires them to step away from their main upload cycle to focus their efforts on it more steadily. And while all of that was present in this case, the payoff was more than worth it. The coming-of-age buddy comedy setup isn't new by any means, but Mark's trademark sense of humor and pacing gives it a unique energy that, as mentioned before, other cartoons of today are sorely missing. This is very grounded. Two teenagers going through teenage dilemmas. It's not splitting the atom here, but every generation needs a show in that vein. And for Gen Alpha, as much as I hate those snot-nosed, lazy, rude, entitled, selfish, obnoxious assholes, this is a good one to fill that role for him. Number 16, Idiot Sandwich. Gordon debuting a show with this premise named after one of his signature catchphrases in 2024? I'm honestly surprised it took this long. The series is a bare-bones cooking competition where competitors make sandwiches. There's not much to it. But hey, it's me. If you invite my queen Susie Vidal to a cooking competition, I am sat. Number 15, Pro Moves. Another super simple YouTube food show on deck here. Adam Richman shows viewers the pro moves on how to get the best grub from some of the country's most iconic food spots, what to order, what to avoid, and how to eat like a king the way locals and regulars do. The show, produced by First We Feast, the same production house behind the juggernaut Hot Ones, has solid production values, and Adam is as loose and fun as ever. The perfect host for a show with this premise, as he's been traveling the US in this format for the better part of 2 decades. It's not reinventing the wheel or anything, but if you're a big Adam Richman fan like me, there is a lot to like here. Number 14, St. Denis Medical. Adding to the camp of people doing what they do best, Justin Spitzer, the guy behind workplace comedies Superstore and American Auto, is back with another NBC sitcom. Like a lot of shows this year, it's nothing you haven't seen before. Justin will be making this type of show over and over again and just replacing the setting for a long time. Firehouse, a restaurant, a funeral home, a prison, a carnival, as serious or as kooky as you want to get. To me, this show is a step up from Superstore, but it's not quite as good as American Auto. Still bummed that one got canned. But the addition of sitcom icons David Alan Grier and Wendy McLudden-Covey gives it legs that kept me watching. Number 13, Wizards Beyond Waverly Place. Okay, I know what you're thinking, and yes, this is only up this high because of Selena. I know, but come on. How could you not enjoy seeing her and David back on screen together? I know it's purely nostalgia, I know it's bad for me, and I don't care. After that though, yeah, this is just like any other kid's sitcom, which I think at this point I have a higher tolerance for, even as an adult than most people, but the new additions are nothing special. Or should I say magical? Actually, that doesn't really make sense in this context. Badthesaurus.com bad. Number 12, Tracker. Another series where the pilot was far and away the best episode. Tracker debuted behind the Super Bowl this year, and they knew exactly what they were doing. Because beyond that first episode that had great white-knuckle action and compelling characters, is a run-of-the-mill formulaic drama with weak mic drops and truly awful product placement.
Oh, actually, we have something for you. Yeah. I gotta say, next day delivery is pretty sweet. Thank you, Amazon Prime.
You got me a gift?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just you wait.
you got this box here.
Dun da da da. Not really. It's a gift for your truck. Honestly, I'm surprised that you didn't have one already. I thought you were
Oh.
Mr. Prepared. Dash cam.
Fucking capitalism, man. Every fucking time. It's also the show your mom was the most into this year, thanks to Justin Hartley. Either because she loved This Is Us, or in the case of mine, eye candy. Number 11, Fallout. Okay. I've had a lot of hot takes over the years. A lot of people have hated my guts for all sorts of things. But placing this outside of the top 10 and calling it the most overrated show of 2024 is like lighting sparklers and then dropping the Fat Man. Oh my god, people loved this one. It could just be because I've never played the games, but I hadn't played any of the games of The Last of Us, and I fully got the hype for that show. It was my show of the year, in fact. So I'm not sure what the glitch was for me, but I was pretty bored for the most part. I will concede, Walton Goggins, excellent, and the production design and world building here is also really good, but on the whole, there was just a lot of dead air here. I don't know what to tell you. It might just be because I'm also not a fan of Westerns, but I wouldn't really classify it fully as a Western. I don't know, it was a solid show, but it's definitely not top 10 worthy. Sorry, y'all. So you might be wondering what makes my top 10 in that case? Well, kicking it off here at number 10, Sunny. By far the most original and daring show of the year, Sunny is the latest series from famed indie powerhouse A24. While not as cryptic as some of their other work, this show will keep you on your toes wondering what happens next, and that's built right into the premise. It follows Susie, an American woman living in Kyoto who receives a domestic robot from her husband's robotics company after her family dies in a plane crash, leading her to investigate what really happened. Tonally, I'd liken this show to something like The Flight Attendant. Mysterious, sure, but also very funny. In fact, you could pass it off as a dark comedy if you wanted, and a lot of that comes from the chemistry between Susie and the robot, believe it or not. There are some slower parts and some side plots that didn't really lead to much, but But as a whole, I got a lot more out of this than I expected. Plus, it's just great to see Rashida Jones and stuff again. I miss her. Number 9, Matlock. Best twist of the year. That's it. That's the review. Number 8, High Potential. Reading up about the premise of this one, you wouldn't be blamed for assuming this was a studio trying to get a piece of the cleaning lady's success, and I thought that too. A cleaning lady getting caught up in the twisted world of murder, and they both happen to be based on other shows from overseas. I mean, what are the odds of that? But as soon as you press play, you see how different they are, and I'm thankful for that. I never got the cleaning lady, it's too cliche in my opinion. High Potential is a lot more colorful and bright, with the obvious difference being that in this case, our protagonist is working with the good guys rather than the villains. But thanks to It's Always Sunny's Caitlin Olsen for playing off type here, it's a refreshing change of pace for both her and the police procedural format. It's fun and silly, but also has a lot of heart behind it too. And ever since its debut, it's something I've looked forward to watch with my mom every week. Man, I really gotta do a video with her at some point. I swear to y'all, she watches way more TV than I even do. Number 7, Day Job. Shout out to my brother for this one, as he put me on to Day Job, an indie Australian cartoon that got a lot of buzz early in the year from the animation community for being one of the best shows highlighted from ABC TV's Fresh Blood, a block dedicated to highlighting the work of up-and-coming indie animators. The creators are currently on Patreon and have gained quite a following for this little mockumentary. This is truly a fan-funded passion project with that indie spirit in every frame. Easy to see why, because this show is great. Super adorable and creative while being deeply relatable, focusing on the day-to-day of a bunch of young adults working a dead-end job set in a rundown bowling alley. The mockumentary elements being present in a cartoon are unexpected, but help ground the series to a very realistic, accurate portrayal of being stuck in a job you're sick of. A silent head nod in show form to Gen Z as a way to say, we see you. Number 6, Tires. Yeah, I'm the neoliberal, biracial Gen Z who was ready to murk the first person in a MAGA hat I came across after the election, but I'm not above putting the Shane Gillis show in the top 10, honey. While Shane is a great presence here, it's more the chemistry and interactions as an ensemble cast that takes this one over the top for me. In fact, it's all character-based, there's hardly any story here. It's like a podcast, a bunch of fellas just joshing each other and making observations about the world around them. Given Shane's knack for pods, this makes a ton of sense, but it's also led the show to get a more mixed reception, with a lot being unimpressed with the lack of plot. Personally, I'm a big podcast and stand-up fan, so this is right up my alley, but I could see for more of a TV traditionalist how it might be a little off-putting. All I know is I've been quoting Dumpster Mermaids all year, so yeah, it made an impact. Number 5, The Vince Staples Show. Hands down has the best episode of TV the entire year with Black Business. Where the hell was that on Rolling Stone's list, huh? Number 4, English Teacher. Like High Potential, I thought this was just going to be a bad ripoff of a more established series, in this case Abbott Elementary, but I was taken aback by how sincere and wholesome this one was, especially by the end, as opposed to just another fast-paced, vulgar workplace sitcom. The characters really make this one. Their chemistry is off the charts, which makes the world feel very lived in, an essential key to making a show like this work, which English Teacher understands to a T. Even the student characters, who could easily fall into the cliche teenage tropes, have a lot of moments to shine, both in the humor and the story. A great balance in being a comfort show as much as a joke-a-minute chuckle fest. The English Teacher gets an A. Hey, this is why I work on YouTube. This is why no one will hire me in the industry. You think jokes like that are gonna land me writing jobs? No, I have to settle for you. Okay, alright, enough. Number 3, The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. This series is alive and well. Fuck anyone that says otherwise. And no, we're not gonna talk about it. This show was awesome. I'm not letting this motherfucker ruin it for me. Number 2, Quiet on Set, The Dark Side Behind Kids TV. As much as I downplayed the impact of TV this year in the intro, the one show that had massive ripple effects across the board also just happened to be one of the best shows of the year. Given my love for Nickelodeon, how often I mention it being part of my youth, how often I've made fun of Dan Schneider myself, and my love for documentaries, this was essential viewing. And I guess it turned out to be essential viewing for pretty much everyone, seeing that Nick as a brand has never been more relevant. Between this and Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm sure they're as happy as could be. I mean, you know how the saying goes, all publicity is good publicity. Especially when all your most popular assets were made by a creepy, weird, perverted, control freak serial abuser. Most people forget about that second part, but trust me, it's true. All joking aside, I was a little worried that this show wasn't going to have anything new to reveal, seeing that this topic has been thoroughly combed over many times before. But thankfully, that wasn't the case, as it was obvious the people behind this one really took their time gathering up all these stories and testimonies, and hearing the accounts firsthand from the kids who endured this kind of trauma is really heartbreaking, with one exception, but I'll save my thoughts on that for another day. Honestly, the only kind of annoying part to the show was that weird bonus episode they had that felt pretty out of character. But outside of that, this was easily one of the most interesting topics to discuss from the TV world, and really interesting to see the fallout from. But ultimately, it came up just a little bit short to my number one pick, which was Ted. Yep, Ted. This came out this year. Putting aside that fact, this humble little show that could was a nice surprise for nearly everyone. Critics loved it, fans loved it, it gave Peacock another argument why, low-key, they have the best lineup of originals, and above all else, it proved Seth MacFarlane isn't a washed-up has-been, as all his sensibilities are still just as over-the-top, crude, and piss-your-pants hilarious as ever. One of the most memorable, quotable, fall over, holding your belly funny shows in years. And during all the chaos and noise of 2024, that's exactly what we all needed.